Okay. Right, so we are all from SGSCs here, and Greg here in the same webinar is actually my co-founder. And we'd like to start off the presentation by showing you guys a short video about what we do. Greg?
Are you currently under stay-home notice alone with no one to support you? Are you part of a vulnerable age group and worried about getting your groceries? Do you know someone with a disability who needs help getting to their appointments? Or are you worried about your elderly parents who are living alone? Well, over 2,000 volunteers are there for you. And we are all over Singapore. Just download the app and sound out your need for assistance. And watch your help arrive. It's really as simple as that. Join our growing community and download SG Assist today. Are you currently...
Right, so as you can see in the video, I mean, for SGSCs in the past few months during the pandemic, we have actually evolved ourselves a little by changing our model to serve more people during this period of time where a lot more seniors and vulnerable communities that actually needed help, and basically even their family members faces challenges in visiting them due to the circuit breaker. And that's where that we thought that community spirit is actually, or community support is actually very important to keep all our family members and loved ones safe. And it helps us to overcome a lot of challenges at the same time. And so then why did we created SGSCs in the very first place? SGSCs was created way back in 2018. And we started off the idea in June before we registered ourselves in December. And we spent the whole of last year in creating the prototyping and interviewing caregivers and beneficiaries, just so that we can come up with the best design to serve the vulnerable communities in the right way that the family members want to do. So, and we officially launched our app in March this year, not because of the pandemic, but because of we have already went through all the proper plannings and readiness to execute and start off the mobile app way back then. So the reason why we created SGSCs was because of our own personal experience. We are all caregivers. Greg and myself, we are all caregivers for our own for our own parents, and also our other co-founders who are also caregivers as well. So we bring upon different skill sets, and we talk about how we wanted to contribute to the community differently. And we realized that the thing that we really lack the most is actually an immediate solution that we could ensure someone could really check into our family member when they are not feeling well and we are so far away. So quoting an example, my mom was facing breast cancer previously, and unfortunately she gotten breast cancer twice, and it got her into depression and anxiety. And frequently I have to rush home just to make sure that she's fine. And sometimes when I'm too late, things will things will happen in the worst possible way, like she lost consciousness, or we have to call ambulance just so that they can be there for her. And sometimes our door get knocked down because the SCDF tried to reach her, but she has already fainted. So that kind of situation, that's where we feel the most helpless, and there's no solution out there that we can immediately call and say that, can you get there before I can, so that we know that at least someone is attending to her. So that whole situation got us thinking whether actually how we started putting SGSCs into place. Great. So as we talk about the vulnerable Singaporeans, like our seniors, our family members, our loved ones facing chronic illnesses and so on, we also talk about caregivers like ourselves, how we cannot be with our loved ones throughout the whole day, and we're always struggling between working and taking care of them. It can be very, very stressful. And in fact, there are also some news article or research material saying that the stress level of the caregivers are way more higher than any other people, because they are also suffering from career stress, at the same time feeling responsible for their own loved ones at home, and there's a lot more pressure that they're under. And lastly, and we wanted to design the solution to be able to also support the social service and healthcare workers as well. So this is the reason why we thought that we need a more sustainable ecosystem of care, how we can actually connect the Singaporeans in need to a wider community network so that they can find assistance from where their loved ones are, and also empower residents, which is all of us here, to be able to render simple acts of assistance to others. And so and secondly, how we can actually help caregivers who are struggling to balance the demand of caregiving and other commitments, and help them to be able to request for help on behalf of their loved ones and monitor the whole situation remotely. And lastly, the social services who are overwhelmed, especially during the pandemic now, are able to free up certain capacity by outsourcing simple responsibility or non-complex cases to neighbors like ourselves to help them to look after all these people. Yeah. Next. So now we'll show you a very like a maybe 30-second video of what SG Assist app can do. Right. So from the video, as you can see, the design are anchored to four main functionality. First thing is that we want to allow the users to be able to initiate and find help within their own neighborhood. Secondly, how volunteers and neighbors around them could also render assistance effectively and real time through our platform. Thirdly, how all these requests and connectivities, that means when we connect requesters to a volunteer, could actually help them to monitor the whole situations or stay informed through video call, audio call, or even text messages, so that the family member will have a peace of mind to say that, oh, this is how a volunteer has been helping my loved ones at home. And it can even help certain users who may have language issues, like the senior only particularly speak Hokkien, but it was a Malay or Indian volunteers that stepped forward to help. And they could actually, there's no need for them to worry, because they could just turn on a video call and the requesters on the other side will be able to translate, and they will be able to support the requesters too. And lastly, we believe that kindness should be given gratitude. So we kind of like created a unique reward system, some that to help people to give gratitude to each other. So next. Yeah, so right now, this is how I'll say the process works. If you look at this picture, Mrs. Chua, who is living alone in Ghim Moh, she needed help in buying groceries because she recently had a fall, and her son, which is Ben, is actually working in Changi Airport and living far away from her. So right now, with SG Assist app, they can actually put out a request, and they've managed to find Harish, which is the volunteer who lives in the same area as Mrs. Chua. He went ahead to help her to buy groceries. And throughout the whole sequence, Ben is actually able to I would say observe and understand each every steps of what Harris has done for his mother. Next. So at the end of the request, Mrs. Chua and Ben is able to give Harris, which is the neighbor who is helping her, with some gratitude credits. So these gratitude credits can be spent on four main areas, which is to redeem food products or whatsoever that is good for them, donation, upskill, and shop. and we'll briefly so in the context of redeem, let's assume that Harris is a low income family. By helping someone in the neighborhood, he managed to earn credits, and he's able to redeem for food for himself, or even pay it forward for another neighbor who may need food themselves, and he's able to sponsor them with it. Secondly, he can also choose to donate the credits to a charity organization of his choice. Thirdly, how actually Harris can use all these credits to attend some workshops, training like first aid, psychological first aid, caregiving course, flower arrangement, maybe cooking. So end of the day, the skills that he have learned will be actually contributing back to the same beneficiaries of their neighborhood, and or even help Harris to be more employable during this, I would say, downturn where a lot of people lost their job. So in the long run, what we're trying to help do here is that not only by helping people you resolve their problem, at the same time, the person who receive help is able to also help the volunteer to do way more than what they can usually do. So lastly is of course a marketplace where we allow merchants to offer products and services to our volunteers at a lower rate so that they can actually redeem meaningful and curated products for themselves. So, and in the long run, we hope that Mrs. Chua, like for example, who used to be a beneficiary or who used to be a care recipient that received help from her caregiver, will also be able to step out to help the community because they realize that how easy it is to help someone else, and to really help to take the step forward to help other people within the neighborhood too. Next. So these are some of the, I would say, events and I would say activities that SGSCs and our volunteers has been doing in the community quite recently. So for example, the first one is Grandparents' Day, where we created events and invited lots of social enterprises and charities to share more about, why is it important for you to have intergeneration bonding and bring the seniors down for a day of fun. That happened in November. And we also created a National Day Trishaw ride where we partner with Cycling Without Age Singapore, and we've set up like 4 different areas or at different parts in Singapore, north, south, east, west, to bring seniors out for a Trishaw ride. That means we invite anyone who wish to bring their seniors down and join the rides and hear more about what is Cycling Without Age, and so to contribute to their cause as well. And during the polling days, we actually heard a lot of stories on the ground saying that there are seniors who really wish to have a voice in their vote, but they didn't have the chance to go down because of their mobility issues. And therefore, we created a campaign. And immediately, we have more than 60 volunteers stepping out to help bring seniors all over the island to go down to make their important vote on that day. And a lot of seniors are very happy that they managed to vote after so many years. So, below there are some of the photos that our volunteers and beneficiaries has taken during all these events. And on the bottom left is actually a training that we provide to our seniors. So we actually teach them about a free workshop to teach them about first aid awareness, like how do you know whether someone is actually having an asthma attack? What do you do when you see someone who may be having a heart attack? So all these, we are constantly providing such free workshops so that we can bring out the awareness of the needs and what seniors could actually do to also help other people, and to also prepare our volunteers for emergency like this. So this is some of the things that we have been doing so far. And if any one of you in this call wish to learn about first aid or learn about or to join us in our first aid awareness class, feel free to email us at the end of this session, or we will introduce you our partner, which is First Responder LLP, who actually conduct very fun first aid trainings that the seniors love. As you can see in the photos, they are laughing and they're having fun in the first aid training. It's not so stressful to learn it. Next. So then we also have some stories from our users. Basically, one of our oldest user is a 71-year-old uncle who actually heard about us on the Channel 8 news and immediately came to Facebook and find us saying that he wants to learn how to use our mobile app. And within half an hour, he learned how to use our app and found a volunteer that lived in the same block to help him to buy groceries. And both him and his wife are living alone. But during the circuit breaker, they try to avoid going out as much as possible. And since then, they have been using the app to find different volunteers to help them to buy groceries. So we also have another, I'll say, beneficiary of our app who has been feeling very depressed because of because of the circuit breaker. And he managed to find people to talk to her, make friends with her. And that's why he realized that the friendship around her actually keeps her going as well. Next. So then we also create showcasing some stories from our volunteers. So as you can see in this photo, our volunteer Ras, he's usually having an erratic work schedule. He always find it very hard to have a long-term volunteering arrangement. But because of our app, he's able to volunteer during his pockets of free time. In this occasion, he has helped auntie who is like 91-year-old to go to polyclinic, and he stay out throughout the whole polyclinic visits with her and even send her home. And both of them had a long conversation talking to each other about sharing their life. So, and if you can look at these small little quotes over here, he says cab fares is about $14, time spent is about 3 hours, sometimes even lesser actually. And the lesson learned is about humanity and warmth towards humanity. So the impact to him is priceless. So this is some of the stories that we have gotten from a lot of our volunteers out there that they have never attempted to volunteer because they thought that it's a very high commitment thing, and there are always a lot of things that is on hand that they had to prioritize, and that's where the SGSAs comes into place to help them to manage their time easier. Next, we also have social workers who actually volunteer with their family member um, during this point of time. And when she asked her parents whether what they feel about helping people during this point of time, and this is what her parents says: regardless of who you are or what you're facing, if you need help and support, we have to give that support. So I felt that this is a true representation of Singaporeans, I would say, kampung spirit. We are really willing to give as long as we know where they are and who actually needs help. And next, so we have Peter here. So Peter actually has been living in Singapore for more than 27 years already, with 2 children and his wife. And during this period of time, he brought his children out and they started to, I'll say, attend to requests in our app that related to supporting migrant workers, seniors, and everything else. Basically, and this is what he says: shopping and driving and delivering was only a 2 hour simple task for me and my boys, but it gave us the insights to be part of the Singapore island and the Singapore community that we might never otherwise experience. So I would say that's the beauty of where the kind of things that we can expose our volunteers to. Basically, they have never ever thought that, I mean, even some of them that we have heard, they have never known that there's rental flats in Singapore. So this is some of the things that our volunteers shared with us. Next. So yeah, since our public launch, I would say as previously we are closed beta, we are testing out with different partners and caregivers group. Since March, we have recruited more than 2,300 volunteers island-wide who are actually doing their free time to support the community in different ways. The numbers are growing every day, and we are hoping to recruit more volunteers. And of course, as we have more volunteers, we also need more opportunities for them to serve the community together. Therefore, we are actually finding more collaborations with social service agencies and other ground groups to actually work out to create more opportunities to serve the community better together with our volunteers. So yes, so the next part is actually the how-to series. We're going to teach you guys or quickly bring you guys through how do you actually able to download the SG Assist mobile app. And of course, after this, we will have the Q&A, everything like that. After this. So first step, okay, I need all of you in this call, although I can't see you guys, to open your App Store or your Play Store, depending on which OS you're using, and go to your and search for SG Assist, and you'll be able to see our cute little blue heart logo as you search for us. I'll give you guys a few minutes to look for that. Okay, for those of you who are more, I would say, have no issues. I mean, I think all of you will know how to scan QR code nowadays, because of the safe entry, right? This is a quicker way. You can actually scan our QR code and have direct access to download our app right now. And that's pretty much. If you have any issues with downloading the app, please feel free to let us know over here, and I can perhaps private message you later on to guide you through. So the left-hand side is the Apple Store, and the right side is the Play Store. So scan the right one and read the next slide. So we also prepared our app user guide. So if you have any issues with registering for an account for yourself, or if you have some question about how do I even put out a request at all, please feel free to scan this QR code as well and save the link in your app. So, and the next thing will be, if you have any questions that is relations to using the mobile app, there's a feedback button in our app itself, so that we can actually help you to resolve the issues directly. Right, next. Right, so I think, yeah, I think I may have went too fast, but Terry, if you want, you can take over from here and we can spend more time talking, sharing with the participant.
Okay, thank you. Maybe can I suggest that we go back to that screen with the QR code for them to download? Yes, and so we just put it here for a while, and then so that people can download. And like what Adrian has mentioned, if you want to look for the app on the App Store and you don't have the scanning function on your phone, you can look for SG Assist on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. But just take note, when you spell SG Assist, it should be together in one word, okay? SG Assist in one word. If not, you might not be able to find it. All right, we just stay on this page for a while. Adrian, so after they download, is there a process where they need to register and log on? Is there a way to walk them through that process and maybe explain some key functionality of the app?
Sure. Yeah, maybe Greg can turn on that slides. So maybe on a quick note, as Greg is actually finding the slides, we kind of like designed the app in a way that is easy for the seniors to sign up on their own. So unlike other mobile apps or other apps that you use out there, they primarily use email to register, and as well a one-time PIN code to confirm your phone number. For SG Assist, our primary login method is actually the phone number itself. So the login process will be much simpler for both the users and the volunteers as well. But as you log in, become the user, you realize that there's an additional function for you to register yourself as a volunteer. So as a volunteer, we actually go through a more stringent kind of assessment. So as you register as a volunteer, we do ask for more information, like we need your email address, we need to know your home address, We need to know the skill sets that you may have, like you are willing to help people to buy groceries, you can drive, or you have first aid certification, and a personal reference that you can provide to us. So I say conduct reference check on our volunteers so that we know that they are people that we can trust. And lastly, we actually require a face photo from all our volunteers. So only if we meet all these requirements, we will then approve this person into our app as a volunteer. So if, as what you've seen in the slides earlier on, the 2,300 volunteers actually went through the extra mile to make sure that they are being verified by SG Assist so that they can render help to the community safely and creating a trustable platform for everyone to seek help on. And in the long run, we're actually working with some social service agency partner to conduct volunteer screening together with us so that there will be a verified volunteer logo on each of our volunteers who have went through the verification. Right. So back to the slide. So Greg has just featured, just shown our app user guide. So basically, this is how it looks like on the main page. So when you click on Get Assistance, you'll be able to see a few main categories that we are actually constantly adding on as and when we start to receive, I'll say, as it get more common in the usage of our app. So right now, the most common ones are actually buying groceries, tapao food, deliver and collect medication, or even just simply let's chat. So there has been caregivers or even seniors who are using this function to say that I just need someone to talk to, or my mom has dementia and she refused to talk to me sometimes, or the moment I talk to her, she starts to yell at me. So they actually find a volunteer to become that bridging communication so that they can actually find out more about how their family member is doing. And lastly, others. So in others, you can actually put in any form of request that you think that the community can support you with, like walking my dog, or I just need someone to quickly go to the pharmacy to buy Panadol for my mom who is alone at home. So things like this. And for every request that goes through in this app are actually being assessed individually by our back-end team, so that we make sure that every single request are legit, or that there isn't anyone that's trying to take advantage of our volunteers as well. So you'll be able to create. There's an echo. Yeah, you'll be able to create your family profile for quick access in the future. So, like for example, you can create this is mom, this is dad, and whoever. So in the long run, you'll be able to just quickly click them in and be able to create requests immediately for them. You just put in their name, their contact number, and that's it. Yeah. Next. So as you put in the request, we keep it open text at this moment just so that everyone has a different way of relaying their message over to other people. So it's an open text format, and we hope to transit them into a more intuitive buttons in the future. So in the description, we will allow, you can put in things like, oh, can you help me to get some groceries? And I need like chicken, egg, vegetables, things like this. Or I just need someone to bring some medication or collect a medication from KK hospital and bring it to my mom. And you don't really have to give off sensitive information to say that my father is 75 years old. He has heart issues. We don't need you to put in anything of such information, but we just need you to put in what do you think the volunteer could help you with. Very straightforward. And if there's need to, you can actually upload photos. And the photos are not like the face photo of your loved ones. It's just photos of like potentially a medication collection slip, or it could be what kind of specific brand of groceries that your parents always want to have. And next, then you'll be able to put in when do you need it. Like, is it immediately today, or it could be 2 days later or 3 days later. So subsequently, we will need to ask you where does your family members live. So the first thing is to actually key in the postal code or enter the address, and it will ask you whether do you have any additional information to enter. So the additional info in this context is actually the unit number. So you can choose to give the unit number or choose not to give the unit number. It's up to you. So you can give the unit number until a volunteer accepted the request, and you can tell the volunteer during the private conversation that you have with him. So lastly, once you have entered the address and everything, you'll be able to submit for approval. So once again, where we are different from other apps is that we make sure that when you submit for approval, it only comes to the back end of SG Assist, where one of our administrators will assess the request before we broadcast it to all the volunteers. So we want to make sure that this system is kept as safe as possible and no one is misusing it. So, but we will definitely approve your request within duration of like 30 minutes to 1 hour max. Yeah, so that's pretty much of how you actually use the app to find help for yourself.
Thanks for sharing, Adrian. I think as other people, or rather as all our attendees try to download the app and play around with the app, I have saw some questions that people have been asking. So actually, one of the questions asked by one of the attendees is SG Assist for all Singaporeans, or is it just for seniors and those who are vulnerables?
It's actually for all Singaporeans, but I would say as mentioned earlier on, when we first created SG Assist, it was really focusing on caregivers. Well, caregivers means that they are dealing with care recipients from all over different kind of situation, be it mental health, be it chronic illnesses, or even seniors, and even youth. So, which is why during the early time, we are supporting caregivers as our primary target. So at this moment, even though a lot of our emphasis is actually on seniors, it's also partly because in the recent months of the pandemic, the seniors become one of the, I would say, main demographic of users who can benefit from our solution the most, which is why as we analyze the data, we kind of like been led to serve the seniors at this moment, but we're definitely serving as much people as possible, including some of our app users are actually single moms who are actually putting up requests so that they can actually have more time to take care of their own child, or even to make sure that their child got back home safely. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think when I first heard about SG Assist last year, really reminds me of when my parents and my grandparents tell me about the kampung days. And I mean, my grandparents like to talk to their neighbors, and the Hokkien phrase that they use is "tau ka chiu" lah, right?
Yeah, correct.
And just help out each other lah. And there's really no this belongs to me. You know, I don't have time for this, and it really is many helping hands in the community. Yeah. So okay, well, the other question that I have in my mind, which sometimes many of our participants ask us in our sessions, is that when they give their phone numbers to register, right? How safe is this? You know, how do you secure their personal details on the app?
Right. So at this moment, we don't really ask for any sensitive data at all. So we don't even know the name of the beneficiary. So, and we don't even know how old they are, and unless they want to disclose to us directly. So if you see the design of our mobile app in the user manual earlier on, we kind of like keep the information sharing as little as possible, which means that the only thing you know is the requester's name and the contact number, because they are the one who put up the request, and you will know where the person lives only when you accepted the request. So if you are a general user and you downloaded our app, you wouldn't be able to see like where this person lives until you accepted the case. So I wouldn't say there's any possible, I would say at this moment, any means of people trying to take advantage of this information is very, very low. And we are taking extra emphasis in terms of security, so that end of the day, all the volunteers, when during the terms of use, they will understand that they are not supposed to share any information to a third party on the people that they serve. And because they are volunteer, it's quite unlikely that they want to do that as well. Because so far, we have been receiving a lot of good feedbacks about the volunteers in our app. They are really true blue Singaporeans who are going the extra miles to serve the community, the vulnerable community during this point of time.
Right, right. Okay, and maybe one other question that I have is, how do you ensure that people who ask for help don't abuse the app, where actually maybe they don't need help, but they are quite independent, but they want to abuse the volunteers' time and resources to come and help them. So how do you guys prevent that?
Yeah. So first thing is that like I mentioned, all the requests are being reviewed by our administrators for every one of them. So if there's any request that seems weird, we can actually leave a remark for ourselves. That means all the administrator will be able to see to take extra precaution when they approve any request from this user. Secondly, we actually allow the users and volunteers to give a write in to us at the end of the request to let us know, saying that, oh, this user seems to have been requesting for free stuff, asking me to do things when they don't need it to. And these are ways that we can actually protect both the users and volunteers as well, because sometimes the volunteers do write in, sorry, the user do write in to say that the volunteers are kind of rude, the kind of thing. But at this moment, fortunately, at this moment, we don't have such situation. Most of the time, the users write in saying that they thank the volunteer for spending so much extra time when they only needed them for something simple. So, which is why this feedback channel is remain open at this moment, just so that nobody misuse it. And thirdly is that we are creating this emergency button whereby both the users and volunteer will be able to trigger a report so that SGS's administrator can go in to find out what happened and whether there's a need to reassess the user or the volunteer, whether anyone have taken advantage of each other. So so far the record is pretty clean. We don't have any situation of that. Although I can quote a few examples. So there was one time we have a requester who says that she needs someone to buy cigarettes for her. And so we thought, why do you need someone to buy cigarettes for you, Like, do you really need help? And cigarettes are not exactly good things, right? So we went, we call her, we message her and call her up and understand that she's actually under stay-home notice. She can't go out. She's living alone. But at the same time, she's facing anxiety. And she says that if she don't smoke a cigarette, she cannot calm herself down. And at this moment, there's no one else that could offer this help to her. And which is why we actually allow and we sort of approve her request. And she managed to find a volunteer to buy cigarettes for her. And she's very thankful for it. So I guess there's a lot of situation in the community that we can't just judge by the surface. We really have to ask deeper to say, we understand that you needed this, but it doesn't sound like something that you need urgently. So why do you put out a request? So that's how we actually, in the past few months, we have learned a lot about what different people are facing. Yeah. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
I mean that's a very interesting and very important point too, because I know you mentioned that sometimes even when your volunteers go down, they may not the beneficiary may not look like they require that help, right? But I mean, in the past, when I get involved in some of the volunteer work, I also realized that sometimes when people ask for help, actually behind asking for the item to be delivered to them, they're looking for someone to talk to. They're looking for someone to connect with, right? And I think really have to give you guys a hand for even going beyond just the request for help, but trying to understand really the needs of the community. And and I mean, for those of you who are joining us for this session, you might be thinking, why did we have this SG Assist app on? Come share with us, because I personally, when I was thinking about various sessions, for me, technology, yes, it can help us for convenience, right? Using apps to make payment, to book a transportation ride, check our particulars, transacting with various government services, and going on Facebook, communicating with others on WhatsApp. But actually, I personally am very touched, when I heard about SG Assist, because it not just provide help for people who need help, but it actually bring people together. And I think this form of technology is really the best, because a lot of people say that, wow, technology will replace humans. Technology will bring people apart. But SG Assist is one example of how we are using technology not just to improve lives, but to bring people together, right? And in the phones, in the hands, in the pockets of all of us, we now have an app that can allow us to build closer relationships, closer community relationships, right? So some weeks back, when I reached out to Adrian and Greg to come for this session, I was really looking forward and excited, because this is really a solid app.